So welcome, I'm Dan Pritchard, co-founder of Tech Southwest. Welcome to this roundtable where we're exploring issues and some of the exciting things that have been happening in tech, but also looking ahead to 2022. So I'm going to start with Richard. You're CTO of a tech company. How's 2021 been for you?
It's been good. I mean, I guess, it's almost embarrassing to talk about it really, because a lot of other sectors have really suffered, whereas we've seen considerable growth, throughout the pandemic really. So we'll probably grow about 90% year on year this year, against 72% year on year for the previous year. So it's been busy, it's been hectic, but it's we're still experiencing good growth.
And that's really encouraging and lovely to hear. And when you look out sort of across the sector as well, through contacts and relationships and clients and what have you, are you seeing this sort of general kind of growth and positivity, or is it more mixed?
Certainly around cybersecurity, we've seen some extraordinary growth. I mean, when everybody raced home and was packing their desktops and their screens off their desks into the boots of their cars and heading for the garage, the shed, the kitchen, whatever it might be, we saw a huge growth. I mean, some of the VPN vendors, it won't surprise you to hear, they've done their entire number for the year by sort of March, April in 2020, and that growth hasn't really slowed, because the remote access that everybody put in, they then revisited it and turned it into secure remote access. So we almost saw two waves. And I think if there was a slowdown, that slowdown happened much, much later than we'd anticipated. It was, almost towards the very, very end of 2020 and into 2021, really, before we really saw the cyber sector start to feel any negative effect from what was going on in the world.
Okay, got it. And of course, cyber, one of the key kind of strengths, specialisms that we have in the Southwest, which is fantastic. Like jumping around, so Lisa, Deloitte, I mean, are you seeing this, across your clients? You're kind of, especially in Bristol, where you're working on the ground with a lot of tech organisations. Generally, is there a kind of mood of sort of positivity and and growth?
Absolutely. I think the one thing from the pandemic is that all of the plans and the tech upgrades and investment in digital transformation, it sped it up. So actually businesses have made that investment now, they've got to grips with what it is, and there's really energy and excitement going into 2022. I think it's very much been the foundation building, a lot of strategy building in this year. And there really is that kind of momentum and energy going into 2022 about how to do things differently, fast track growth, make up some of what might have been lost this year. So I think definitely our clients coming to us about the upgrades of their digital processes, a lot of cloud management, but with that comes an increased focus on kind of cybersecurity at the same time. So I think they're probably in kind of tech demand. That's definitely what we're hearing from clients at the moment.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lisa. And then Caroline, I know one of the things that you did with Astley Media, this insight report earlier in the year, actually talking to CEOs of tech companies and some of their challenges, but also some of their priorities. And the use, because one of the things I'm really interested about is brand, tech in the Southwest, and what kind of world are we creating? What kind of sector are we creating? Again, are you seing there sort of positivity, hope for the future, excitement?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the sort of we mapped out what the priorities were for sort of tech leaders across the Southwest, and number one was very much recruitment to be able to achieve what they need to do. But the second biggest priority was around expanding into new markets. So definitely people have sort of been positive about doing that. But yeah, and recovering after the pandemic, forming partnerships, breaking into new sectors, raising funds. People will definitely focus on, really sort of thinking that, the end of this year into next year, people are wanting to sort of move forward and like others have said, make up for lost time in some way.
So I guess that's really great for us to hear that this morning. Now, I'm going to get a bit of reflection from Julian and Ali, and then go to Andrew with a key question about talent. So Julian, what we're seeing in the Southwest, because you sit outside the Southwest and you're working in various regions across the UK, is this a sort of familiar tale, or is it something a bit different about the Southwest and how we're progressing? Or it'd be good to, I don't want to call you an outsider, Julian. It'd be good to get an perspective from someone beyond the Southwest who's not blessed enough to live here.
No, it's true. I do live outside the region. I've got quite a lot of family connections in the Southwest, so I spend a fair bit of time there. But we've got offices across 6 different locations around the UK, and they're all outside London, and so we get quite an interesting perspective on other regions. I guess, you know, the themes that have been mentioned today are definitely kind of common to the UK economy and to the regional economy more broadly. We've seen this digital acceleration and the demand. I mean, what Lisa was saying earlier, and I guess what Ali was saying as well, the demand for digital competence and digital transformation and the things that go alongside that, like cybersecurity. It's really hot. Those are the hot areas of the market. And from our perspective as a consultancy, we like the clients that we have that are in tech related areas have really been flying. And that's been quite dramatic, I suppose, amidst everything else that's been going on with the economy, with things like furlough and, you know, all the lockdowns that we've had. The clients that are enabling tech have really, the companies that are enabling tech have really been moving at pace. And I think what's interesting about the Southwest to me, looking at the wider Southwest, because I've probably fair to say I've been fairly Bristol and Bath focused in, and a lot of the work that I've done so far in the region, because it's such a big area, like you say, Dan, it's quite spread out. It means that there's room for different pockets of excellence in different areas, and those are really kind of emerging through the work that we're doing. And so I think that is a bit different about the Southwest, because it's geographically spread out. If you think about other parts of the UK, let's say, you know, the Midlands, real epicenter there, and obviously it's very accessible from all directions as well, which is, it's a different kind of geography than you've got down in the Southwest. Now in the Northwest, there's Manchester, Yorkshire, there's Leeds, and the sort of Leeds city region, and up in the Northeast, Newcastle's a big hub. So it's slightly different in that sense.
Yeah, which is fascinating, how landscape and geography can shape the kind of
yeah,
there's an ecosystems that we.
It's every region's USP.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't take that away from it.
No.
So I'm a question to Ali, and then come to Andrew. So, Ali, so in terms of, you know, we've heard from Richard about, you know, growth, but in terms of talent, you know, what are some of the challenges or great things that you're doing there to try and get the talent to kind of deliver great work?
And I think this is actually, funny enough, a project that Richard is actually leading on. I mean, you know, we're looking for talent both in Bristol from a development perspective, but also nationally from a sales and business development side. And I think, you know, that the conclusion that we're still reaching around talent is that, you know, it has to be an ongoing process. You can't sort of expect that you can sort of put a job ad up and get the talent that you need there and then. We need to be building relationships with candidates ongoing, and I think that's sort of really been the shift that we've looked to achieve. And, you know, Richard actually has been leading on this. I don't know, Richard, if you want to just talk a little bit more about on the tech side. Obviously, I've sort of got more familiar with the sales side, but it would be quite interesting to hear on that. And just on the other, just the flip side, before you do that, on the customer side, I think, you know, one of the challenges that mid-market organisations have, and I think, you know, there'd be a huge number of those, you know, within the Southwest, is having the cyber talent within their organisations. So for a large organisation, you know, Deloitte or Natwest, you know, you've got huge cyber teams to manage this. But for mid-market, you're lucky if you've got one person who's actually dedicated to cybersecurity. So it's a huge challenge for them, sort of keeping up with how they protect their organisation when they've got so many other things to do as well. But let me just pass over to Richard to talk about specifically what we're doing around nurturing tech talent.
And then, yeah, Richard, if you could drop now, then we must come to Andrew, and then we must come to Louis. Richard.
Sorry, the audio's gone a bit strange then.
So yeah, so in terms of just a brief kind of tech talent, tackling that challenge, and you know, this could be sort of music to Andrew's ears, I suppose, in terms of, wow, look at all these tech companies and they need great people, and we've got the people, you know, or is it as simple as that? Maybe not, you know, but so from your side, in terms of attracting talent, you know, do you have relationships with colleges, universities? You know, are you looking at all the different options? You know, because, you there's one thing about grabbing talent from existing companies, and of course there's different roles. There's entry-level roles, mid-level roles, senior roles, but are all these things now in the mix into the long-term partnerships, relationships, rather than just a traditional, let's put an ad out and see what happens?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the just put an ad out and see what happens, it just doesn't work. Right? It stopped working about 18 months ago. And so we've had to move into a more active recruitment process. So we've got a recruitment process outsourcing company that is driving that active recruitment for us. We've got a full applicant tracking system now, which is never something we've had to do previously. It's all been manageable on spreadsheets and via email and so forth. But it's got to the point now where we have had to formalize it. And actually, what we're trying to build is an end-to-end candidate experience, actually, because we're competing against some, much larger, much more funky, cool kind of companies around the Bristol Ring Road in particular. I think it was, I don't know if I'm allowed to name them or not, but it was a very trendy clothing brand that came in quite recently and almost decimated the talent pool overnight. They were paying above average salaries, set expectations that a lot of other organizations, more established organizations, couldn't compete with, but also didn't want to compete with, because you don't want to artificially inflate the overall recruitment market, I suppose. So we've had to be a bit more clever about how we've positioned the company and how innovative and exciting we are. The kind of more social side of Censornet, it's talking about the facilities that we have. I mean, we've got the Bristol and Bath Science Park, but we've also got gym membership, where you've got a discounted bar and grill on site. There's a huge swimming pool, steam room, etc., etc. Because it is all about attracting talent. And as Ali says, we want to build a candidate pipeline. One of the things that we've had mixed results from recruiting grads, bringing graduates into the company and then sort of moving them up through, giving them that career progression into, they might begin in a sort of QA role, for example, but then we will grow them into a junior development.
Why do you think that is? Why would you say mixed? Is that because of the sort of due diligence, or just the range of people, or the talent available, or the processes? Or
am I allowed to say I think it's the work ethic of that generation?
You just yeah, well, that's really interesting. Andrew, do you want to come in there? And so we've heard a lot about growth. We've heard a lot about the talent challenges. Is this an exciting opportunity? Bearing in mind, I think 14 universities across the wider Southwest. If you look at it in total, a couple of 100,000 students at least, and a lot of those will be doing tech-related courses, computer science, but also game development. Also, is this the moment now where we need to shift how we work as tech companies to kind of understand more about the young people, Gen Z, into that talent, how we engage with them, what they're looking for, because work ethic, that's a really interesting point. Or is it about different cultures and different ways of working? And it'd be really interesting from your side, into the University of Exeter, what you're doing, what you're seeing. Bearing in mind the Southwest, I think again it's really interesting. There's not lots of huge employers. It's a real mixture, isn't it? Different size companies, which I think is
yeah. And I think that size thing is really important, because it's quite easy to build relationships with large organizations. So if you look at what we've done as a university, we've been quite fleet of foot around degree apprenticeships. So we were early adopters, early providers, and we provide a lot of degree apprenticeships with companies like JP Morgan and Deloitte around data science. It's much harder to get that going in an area where you have a lot of small businesses. It's a tougher conversation and it's a tougher sell. So that's been slower to adopt. So I think there are things that we could maybe look at, how we expand that offer. Something which is always going to slow universities down is the need for, if you like, train the trainers. So we know there's a demand, but actually getting the lecturers, getting the postdocs into positions where they're able to support people effectively is a bit of a challenge. To give you an idea, we run something called the Impact Lab, which many of you will know about, and it's about going into small businesses and helping them to make the best use of their the digital and data information that they actually already have. But the moment we get some good postdocs working with that, they're immediately poached by someone who says, "Oh, blimey, this person knows what they're doing. I could do with them." So it's about that. Can we maintain that supply of people coming in who can then train people? I think that we're going to see an increase in, the tech offering from the universities. That will be sadly a little bit slower than possibly it could be, just because of that trainer-trainer issue. But one of the things I'm interested in is, what about the students who are doing subjects other than very obvious data? Are there things that they could be doing as part of the general support, the kind of activities that we like to do with our students anyway? So we have programs like X Factor, which will try to help them have employability skills. Are there things that we could be doing that would help? So would it be useful for us to be helping small businesses to do digital audits? So if we were training people, or training them for, say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how to do a digital audit, and then putting those students into small businesses, is that something that people would benefit from? Is that something that university should be doing? What kind of skills should our students be leaving with, even if they've done classics, you see? So that's the kind of conversation that we need to have. So what would I say? I think universities adopted switch really quickly, actually, to working online. We're charging ahead very quickly to make sure we have good quality materials, rather than just dumping slide decks onto the internet, which nobody needs, thank you. And I think we'll move fairly quickly to try to sell that as asynchronous small modules available. So the university is very active in this area at the moment. But the more intelligence we get from the market is the better, really, which is why we're sponsoring research like this.
And I think, yeah, that sort of strategic interface, joined up approach, as well as the kind of, tactical kind of, and the students, the institutions, the organisations, and the young people themselves. It is complex, isn't it? But it feels like we've come a long way. But there's still a long way to go, and we do hear, the average size of a tech company in this region is around 20 people, and so in terms of recruitment, onboarding, support, all of that, and that whole generalist versus specialist, it is really tricky. So that is a kind of a really interesting piece around the talent, and obviously the Southwest is not just competing, within the region; it's competing beyond the region, perhaps more so than ever, with remote working and all of that. Does that then? Do we have an advantage there then about the kind of the Southwest as a place to live and do great tech as well? Is that one of the things that in terms of, I mentioned maybe about the brand that is tech in the region, and Bristol has it, it's got a buzz, but we have amazing tech companies across the whole of the Southwest, tucked away in these incredible places. So they're passionate about it, and they're committed to the region. I see Richard nodding. Is that something you get a sense of? You talked about culture earlier in terms of attracting people. Is that part of our opportunity, perhaps, as a region?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely, it is. I think most of the young people that I talk to, they all want to live in Bristol today, or Bath. My daughter went to Bath University. My son is currently on a 4-year digital media course at UWE. So I kind of know the region reasonably well from both the employment side and trying to recruit talent in the area, but also it is definitely somewhere that is very, very attractive to young people. I mean, we've got 2 roles open right now that we'd be very pleased to fill from any of the universities in the area, for example. And I take Andrew's point that it is actually quite difficult to, for a small company with 55 full-time employees, for example, it's very difficult to build a relationship with an organisation as large as the University of Exeter, for example. So, yeah, maybe there is an opportunity. I mean, we're in the Bristol and Bath Science Park, where there must be 60 to 80, 100 small tech startups, effectively. It's a typical kind of grow on space environment where you can start with an office which will take 2 or 3 or 4 people, all the way up to traditional lease space for well in excess of 100 employees potentially.
And I think coming in there are some interesting things happening. I mean, UWE have kind of kickstarted launch space again. Cornwall College Group Fibre Hub. So that's a building that's taken over by Head Forwards, crypted out, and put tech companies in there, completely sold out, in amongst the lecture theatres. So you've got students and the companies hanging out in the same cafes, the lecturers all in one building. And now they've already taken the second building on now and doing exactly the same. So you start actually just physically, these hubs and putting people together. Through that, these moments can happen, and connections and understanding each other's worlds feels like a good thing. in terms of brand, Southwest Caroline, and then we'll come to Lisa from Deloitte. You know, do you see sort of commonalities across the region, or are we actually noticing this more sort of area by area, city by city, or maybe it's both? Are you seeing that?
I guess I think it's a bit of both. I think really, I think. Yeah, I suppose it's. I think a challenge though is, you know, what Richard just said about the sort of the Bristol Bath. You know, the attractiveness of Bristol and Bath. How do we replicate that throughout the rest of the Southwest? You know, what do brands need to do to work on the brand? I guess of their own companies, but also collectively as you know, a region for tech, I suppose.
Yeah, because one thing is, you know, we peer in from the outside at initiatives like Northern Powerhouse, and we assume they're all very joined up and working really well and all connected and all with one voice. But of course, you know, they do that for certain asks, you know, and cities are still competing, and there's all the complexities of localness and regional and how you define regions, you know. And I think one of the good things about Southwest is we've got beyond some of that now. We just know there's some great things going on, so let's celebrate it wherever it is. I also wonder, you know, whether we haven't mentioned it yet, you know, the road to net zero, you know, coming off the back of, you know, well, 2021, the G7 was in Cornwall, right? And then that journey then to Glasgow, COP26, is there a thread across the Southwest, all these things that are starting to, you know, in terms of whether they're the really cool app company in Bristol wanting to sort of change the world and do good, or the agri-tech company in sort of Devon doing amazing things, or the environmental science, climate science, marine. There seems to be a strand around that, and maybe that is part of our USP. I don't know, Lisa, from Deloitte, in terms of the kind of companies you're working with, you know, and even Tech for Good. There's a huge Tech for Good movement, you know, in Bristol and elsewhere. Is that something that we should get excited about? And that's part of our, you know, maybe every region is saying that, I suppose, but you know, we have an interesting landscape and some great communities that seem very passionate about that whole, you know, piece, which is so key. Lisa, from Deloitte perspective, is that something that the Southwest we should be celebrating more, and is that part of our kind of USP?
It is, absolutely. And I think especially in our region, what we're seeing is the rise of anything with tech on it, whether you've got green tech, banking tech, fintech, as you've all seen, the rise of this. I think the challenge we have in our region, especially for, you know, Deloitte, I guess, is kind of like you're a bunch of accountants, whereas actually all of the investment and the tech capability, working with people like yourselves that we have also. So I think it's changing that perception, and then leading on from some of the discussion earlier, working with universities to find that talent that isn't just your typical courses. So, you know, the more collaborations we're having with people like Code First Girls, for example, the digital bootcamp initiative through Bristol and Bath universities, is finding that talent in other courses, but then attracting them into the kind of the tech world, how we can get them involved there. I think the attraction is one piece, but then when you have the talent in the organization, it's maintaining that. So we've spoken about kind of your yoga or your gym memberships, and you're making it a great place to work. Another consideration at the moment is absolutely kind of what that future of work piece looks like. Because some of the challenge, being very honest, that we've had from the younger people in the organization is, well, I have better Wi-Fi at home. Why would I pay for the commute? And I can do my job working from home. What you want is to actually nurture that kind of collaboration, that community feel, that working with teams in the office, and actually learning from other people. You know, great ideas spark from those kind of collaboration sessions that you have in the office. So yes, the rise of kind of green tech and that environment is actually, as an organization, that perception change, attracting and then maintaining that talent is a key challenge. And I don't necessarily think that's, you know, just for Bristol and Bath and the Southwest region. I think everyone's feeling that, if I'm honest.
And I guess people are looking for exciting projects, you know, and that sustainability net zero piece in terms of making a difference within an organization or the products and services you're developing. You know, you would think that is something that is going to attract young people. Andrew, I don't know if you want to sort of comment on that in terms of, you know, obviously environmental sciences and data is huge at Exeter, and with the, you know, with the Met Office and other key partners. Is that a key area for us?
It's really important for us as an institution to be communicating that strength, and then, you know, the sheer volume of people that we have with those kind of qualifications and with those kind of specialisms, with the Met Office and a large research team at the University of Exeter in the same area. But it's funny, once we start to talk about geographies, how it's very difficult. I mean, the Southwest geography is such a complicated one, because the arguments of what Bristol and Bath need are so different to the arguments of what Cornwall and Barnstaple need. So, having a coherent argument for how we invest in the Southwest at a kind of, sort of old-fashioned sort of 7 counties geography is really quite complicated. So, I mean, and again, and yet we're living in a virtual world. So geography is theoretically less important, but actually the arguments that will be made have to be much more tightly constrained by geography.
So one thing there you just mentioned, perhaps the sort of final topic we should cover is investment. Is the flow happening? Is the levelling up? We had the announcement of the £200 million Southwest Investment Fund. And I suppose there's 2 ways of looking at it. One is saying, we don't get a fair share of the slice of the cake, or we need to sort of, get our act together, because investors go where the opportunity is, or where they perceive the opportunity to be, and can be, can be evidenced. I don't know if someone wants to jump in there. I mean, Richard, from your side, in terms of, and tech companies, the investment, we've had some amazing successes in Bristol and across the wider region, and sort of the big number ones, I guess, the ones that hit the headlines, but actually it's a much more complex picture than that in terms of investment into companies and supporting people and growth. I'd welcome your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we struggled to raise investment in this country. There's no doubt about that. We've always struggled. I mean, this is not the first software company that we've built. This is our 3rd or 4th, I guess. So, we've been kind of doing this since the early 2000s, really. And the challenge that you've got is you're competing with North American organizations that, it's nothing to go out and raise 30 to 40 million, for example, dollars. We're lucky if we can raise 3 or 4, frankly. And in order to raise that 3 or 4, we have to go outside of the UK, and we have to go into Europe. It's very, very difficult to do it here.
Are you seeing a change at all, in terms of this government or the British Business Bank or regional, angel investor groups and others, in terms of it's happening, the ecosystem is improving, or you see we're still way behind North America?
I think we're way behind. We're just way behind. And yet we are competing. North American VCs, they pour money into Israel. They pour money into, obviously, Silicon Valley, but also the Northeast around, particularly Boston, Massachusetts. And we're competing with startups that can almost go and raise 30 to 40 million based on an idea. We might have that same idea, but we are always going to be out-executed, by an order of magnitude. We're not talking about, the difference is 10, 20%. It's 10x is the difference, which makes it, really, really difficult for, British innovative software companies, tech companies, cybersecurity companies to really break through. You've got to have something, so special. And that all comes down to the idea, and you maybe have 1 or 2 of those kind of ideas in your entire career. The really frustrating thing is when you do have them, you still can't raise the money and you still can't execute. Everybody wants to put money into something that is low risk or no risk. Well, we can all do that. Put it into a current account and earn 0.2% on it. That's no risk, low risk. They just will not invest in the way that North American investors think.
Right.
I'm so quite curious, actually, to bring Julian in on this, because Julian and I worked together previously when I was Director of Strategy at Innovate Finance, which is the trade body for fintech. And within fintech, actually, getting investment wasn't difficult. And I just wonder whether there's a bit of a marketing job to do for the wider sector, actually, because I think part of the reason that fintechs probably find it easier to raise money is that they are in finance. So that the people doing the investment understand the market that they're in. You've got so much of it's based in the City of London, and so you've got those direct relationships in the city. And I suppose I'm just so curious on Julian's perspective here, because obviously he's he works closely still within the rate finance, not just in London, but in other regions. But obviously, you've got a wider perspective on other parts of the tech sector. And I'm just sort of curious, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. Yeah, I guess so. Fintech's quite well, it's a very hot sector. I think Tech Nation flagged it as the fastest growing part of the tech economy. The investment stats in fintech for 2021, even by halfway through this year, were more than last year in total. So this is going to be by far the biggest year for tech funding raising in the UK. Fintech's it's always been considered to be quite a London centric until recent years, and I suppose that's one of the barriers we've been trying to sort of knock down a bit at Whitecap through some of the work that Ali and I have been involved in together in the past, and organisations like FinTech West, if you guys are aware of it, in the Southwest. The challenge with fintech funding is when you're in an early stage, you're way off revenue, because most fintechs are regulated in some way, and so you've got to go through that regulatory journey before you can start generating significant revenue. And so you need someone to back you on the journey there, and that sometimes puts off some of the non-specialist investors, and that's made it a little bit harder in the regions until recently, because you don't necessarily have the knowledgeable investors that are willing to take that gamble. They're looking for, more, as Richard says, more of that sort of safe bet. So there's been a degree of that, but I think now I see more and more regional funding deals for fintech companies around the UK. I think in the north, this new Southwest Investment Fund is really big news. In the north, I've seen a lot of fintechs get funding through the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund. As that's been a great source.
Are there lessons that other parts of tech can learn from fintech, though, do you think, in terms of how we market to investors more widely? Because I think there is quite a specific sort of fintech piece, but I just wonder for everyone else actually how we take some of those lessons.
I think what's happened with fintech is people have become more and more comfortable with it as it's become more and more mainstream, and that's really helped. And so there's a bit like with things like crypto, you get to a tipping point where you think, well, everyone else is in, I'm missing out.
That's
so
really
actually I need to check this out.
Very few people want to be the first; they want to be the second, fourth, and fifth. And so you've got to kind of create this momentum and the proof points and the evidence. There's enough there for everyone else to pile in. And tech, there's so many specialisms, just in the Southwest, you've got the different strengths and hubs and what have you, and it's like, how do you do that for all of those? I think the other thing is risk and how we tell the story and the brand of tech and get those investors excited about it and seeing the value and seeing, of course it should be part of our portfolio, of course it should be part of our mix, into those individual private investors. And the Southwest has a lot of those, actually, has it's an area where wealthy individuals do kind of gravitate to. So
Dan, if I could just add one more point there. I think one of the things that's been proven to make tech companies perform better and be more attractive to investors is when they get to go through some kind of structured program, and an incubator or an accelerator. Maybe they're a university spin out. I think we've got quite a few people on the call today that are close to all those things that I just mentioned. And I think the more coaching tech entrepreneurs get, you forget that young entrepreneurs in particular don't have the benefit of experience of working in organizations or working in business, and they quite often can have some big blind spots that they just have no idea that they've got a blind spot there. And I think that's where these things that are, the university spin-outs especially, but incubators, accelerators, getting coaching, getting guidance, being forced to perform in a slightly controlled environment makes you so much better placed to and get the money, tell the story that you need to tell and get the funding that you need as well.
I think that's a really exciting piece for the Southwest, because we have the sort of area by area. We have Set Squared, we have the Energy Shed, Tech Southwest Startup Studio, which is just a made up idea. Let's just put 20 early stage founders through a program, working with Activate Ventures and others, and some of those are now the first two raising from having gone from sort of setting it up in their bedroom at the start of the year. So that you know, I think there's lots of learning there. And this triangle: business support, funding, and talent. I think, you know, those three things are absolutely key, aren't they? Andrew, from your side, in terms of that business support piece and the work that Set Square do, and that interface between the universities and business is, you know, it's as busy as ever, I should imagine.
Yeah, I mean, Set Square are very, very busy at the moment. We're able to kind of add space onto the science park and fill it fairly easily, which is, you know, really great news. The other thing that I mentioned that I'm sure you'll know about is probably the Technopole, which is kind of an ask that the LEP is putting together for, I call it a virtual science park, but it's kind of not. But if you're in Barnstaple or if you're in Torrington, there's a limit to how much support you can get for innovation. But if you have an online platform that can provide you with innovation support, then quite possibly that's something that should help. The other thing that it might be worth mentioning is how much innovation support do we get from government? So getting a figure around how much we get compared to other areas and other parts of the country. I know that I think South Gloucestershire gets about £1.20, which doesn't actually sound very much per person in innovation support, but you know, Barnstaple gets 6p. So how we decide to allocate that and what we do with that kind of money, and how we make a case for government for, you know, levelling up that kind of funding as well without simply stripping it away from somewhere else is interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I'm mindful of time. I think what would be really good would we go around one final time for a quick kind of something that you're perhaps excited about looking ahead, in terms of, you know, we've learned a lot of lessons in these last couple of years, as has everyone in different parts of business. But is in terms of looking to the future, and whether that's a local thing, your organisation, a Southwest thing, or a national thing, or a piece of tech, or whatever that might be, in terms of or the brand that is, you know, tech in this region, what we're trying to, you know, create here. So I'm going to start with Richard because he's got the coolest T-shirt on. So Richard, in terms of something exciting about tech, you know, what's on your radar, perhaps, whether that's your business or the wider piece, or the sort of the hub that you hang out in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really, really comfortable in the Bristol and Bath area. I mean, I can't see us ever moving away now. And we've you know, founded several businesses centered around the BBSP, and it's almost like a second home. I mean, we've been in there for 10, 11, 12 years. I'd need to look back in time and work out exactly how long it's been. But we've been able to attract such fantastic talent, and you know, the way that we compete against these extremely well-funded North American organizations is that we're able to build a small team that can massively outperform a team anywhere else of the same size. And that's just testament to the education in the region, to the kind of people that we're able to attract. But we do have to, you know, wear cool T-shirts, and this is all down to my son, of course. But you know, you need the bar and grill, you need the gym, you need the swimming pool, you need the breakout areas, the sofas,
cool stuff, the hubs, the people, the movers on the shakers on the scene, all of that. You know,
absolutely.
Cool tech, Bristol Tech Festival, all those kind of things. You know, sends out messages as well as gives us way to connect. You know, that is beyond just the remote and the virtual. And that's really support that, Richard. Thank you.
It's a great area, great region.
And I think across the region, people, you know, are passionate about the places they live and work. And I think that's really exciting. Lisa, from your perspective, from Deloitte, in terms of perhaps looking ahead, or something you're excited about in terms of tech and the tech sector.
Absolutely. I think, you know, we've discussed some of the growing fintech momentum. That's exciting to see that really take off in region. I know we were identified, Bristol and Bath, as an emerging fintech cluster as part of the Khalifa review. And I think there's kind of lots of plans being put in place, momentum behind that, what impact we can have on the region in that space. And all of the players now kind of popping up. Echo the thoughts around the kind of community feel, getting back face to face, some of those hubs collaborating. Yes, we can all work remotely, but magic happens when you're in a room together, swapping those ideas, seeing people face to face. And the final thing I would say is actually so much increased conversation on the space program. Space program in our region is a really exciting one to watch kind of sector in terms of the opportunities that will provide too.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, of course, with Spaceport in Cornwall and the first UK launch coming in July, it's going to be, you know, it's a global story, national story, regional story. You know, so there's all sorts of amazing things happening there, and the cluster of tech companies that they're building there as well. They've already taken over the whole first building, and now second one's happening. So that's really exciting. Caroline, from your side, in terms of a perspective, in terms of the brand that we're developing, either collectively or individually, in terms of thoughts there in terms of looking ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's around the opportunity for brands to become bolder, more sophisticated, tech for good, green tech. I think there's just lots of opportunities, and it's just now we've got a really great ecosystem. How can we take that further?
Brilliant, thanks, Caroline. Right, jumping around, Andrew, University of Exeter.
Yeah, two things. One, how do we get our bright, intelligent, innovative thinking young people into the SMEs in the area so that you can see how good they are, and then you can keep them on and they can benefit and stay in our region? That's one. The other one is, what's the very big ask? So if we're going to sit down and think, okay, we can ask for one thing from this government that will level up Devon and Plymouth and so on, what is that about? Is it a marine and environmental intelligence? But what does that mean? What is the actual ask, and what are we asking for them to actually contribute to?
And our first one, I was really pleased to be approached by Peter Colston, who runs the Society of Entrepreneurs at the University. I didn't know anything about it. Tech leader introduced me, and I'm like, well, how many people have you got part in your society? I think back to my university society days, 40, 50 people. So we've got 750 people. We run masterclasses, workshops. So that's 750 people just on that entrepreneur society, from all sorts of courses. And I was like, wow, we've got to collaborate more. We've got to be just more joined up, around some of these things, because we do not want all that talent just assuming it's happening elsewhere. The story is happening here in the Southwest, and that's what we've got.
Well, they're our second biggest student society, so it kind of shows the way they're thinking.
Fantastic. Ali, coming to you, and then finally Julian.
I think the thing that I'm really excited about actually is the customer base. So I love the technology that we've got. I'm really excited about the platform that we can deliver, and the real opportunity I see is that such a range within the Bristol and Bath area and the wider Southwest, of mid-size and larger organisations that could really benefit from that. And I think that just looking at it not just as from a Censornet opportunity, but from tech in general, I think that I'm sure there are a number of your members that are going to be in a position to actually really help businesses continue to transform. And some of the technology, just some of the really granular technology that I see just from a marketing perspective is getting better and better in terms of the MarTech stack. But that sits across the whole piece. So I just think there's some really exciting opportunities to engage with customers.
Fantastic, thanks, Ali. And Julian, obviously, Whitecap, you're working on this regional report with Tech Southwest and the partners on this call in terms of looking at the data, talking to people across the tech ecosystem. I guess that in itself is pretty exciting in terms of what that is going to reveal and how we can use that, of course, into the momentum, the brand, the key messaging and the asks that Andrew raised. It's really important. It feeds into that, and practical things happen as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll only be a good report if meaningful actions get taken on the back of it, of course. Otherwise, it'll just be all very interesting and everyone moves on. So, I think just looking at Southwest, and I guess it's a point that's applicable more broadly. The thing in my mind, whenever I'm having these conversations, is don't underestimate the impact the universities can have. I just think the university's got such a key role to play in the future of the tech sector. The trends that I see, developments Andrew's been talking about Exeter today. We've got stuff like Falmouth Launchpad. I was at UE last week. I did a guest lecture at UE, and I just see thousands of young people everywhere. Just a great opportunity to make sure that course, the direction of travel that they're going in, brings them into the workforce in a place where they can do something that's useful and puts them in a good career. Our report will forecast huge growth in the tech sector in the Southwest, and that's clear already. It's been clear from very early days of looking at the data. Every region in the UK is expecting significant growth in their tech sector. That's growth means jobs, all those jobs need filling. Who's going to fill them? I think that's, that's where the challenge of making it all a reality is going to come down to sort of people in a huge sense. If I always say everything comes down to people and money, so we talked about funding a bit today as well. But yeah, I just think the universities are going to be key in all of this. I see the funding, the way funding is awarded in the UK changing at the moment. It's, the funding calls that are going out are increasingly linked to industry and have to be so directly linked to industry problems or working with industry partners, that I think that's a major influence in lots of different ways.
Fantastic. That's a really good summing up, Julian. Fantastic. Andrew.
Yeah. Just one quick concern is that the University of Exeter and the University of Plymouth have been very unusual for British universities in that they've used European funding, ERDF funding, ESIF funding for innovation support. Most universities decided that was too complicated and they'll just carry on using central government funding. The problem is that all that money runs out in about 2 years' time, so there's a big drop-off for a number of institutions: Exeter, Plymouth, Lancaster, Sunderland, one or two others, South Bank. But for most institutions, it's not the case. And if you allow the money to be spent the way that politicians locally want the money to be spent, they'd rather have a swimming pool and a new roundabout because they can point it and say, we did that, vote for me, rather than an innovation centre or some more staff in the innovation centre. So there's going to be some lobbying that needs to be done around that.
Yeah, key stakeholder work. So I think, thank you everyone. I think we've touched on many different things in terms of some of the great tech that's going on, the growth of the sector, some of the challenges, the talent, the importance of universities. Clearly, from my side, the more joined up we are, the better. The more we know about things that are going on and initiatives and programs, and we're signposting in terms of Tech Southwest as much as we can around these interfaces is absolutely key, because we have hundreds of thousands of young people in our region. We have companies that realise they need to develop long-term strategies around talent, and if they create a great culture and are able to kind of build that and get the message out there, then it's absolutely key. Because as Richard, the point you made, we're not just competing regionally or nationally, we are competing globally when it comes to tech. So that is exciting, but also a full-on part of the challenge. So thank you everyone: Lisa from Deloitte, Caroline from Astley Media, Ali and Richard from Censornet, Andrew from University of Exeter, Julian from Whitecap. Louis from Natwest was here for a while but had a dodgy connection and we lost him, so we miss you, Louis, but maybe next time. And thanks everyone so much. Have a lovely rest of the year, and we'll catch up again soon. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Cheers.